Well, oh, it looks like the mic isn't working. Okay. Well, here it is. It's the new year, and I'm back with Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. Yep, this was set up. Is this working now? No. Okay. Well, this was set up for the Christmas painting special, and so we've got another painting area here where I'm not going to be, and a painting area here where I am, and a pretty wide screen because there were 3 people here before. Now there's just 1. Anyway, we're still set up for that, and it looks like if I'm looking at the audio mixer correctly, there is no sound. So I'm not quite sure what needs to be done. We might have to start over again. Yep, no sound. Okay, I'm going to pause this and take a break and come back and see if we can't get this working. Yeah, okay. Well,
was there something that made you think it wasn't working?
Yeah, the screen that was on just before you clicked on something.
Okay. Didn't tell me that we were streaming and recording right now. Hi, everybody. This is the start. So hello. Didn't know that we were streaming already.
Yep. Well, I started it and I didn't think the sound was working. So, anyway.
Yep.
Happy New Year.
Hi. Good to see you all. This is my phone. These are my hands. I'm gonna leave now. Bye.
Well, apparently things were working, but it didn't look like it was working because maybe I didn't click on something. Anyway, yeah, here it is. It is the new year. I'm back, and this is Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. What we're painting is not Christmas ornaments. That was already done. What we're painting is some miscellaneous pieces for our dungeon sets. I'm finishing up what I was working on before the holidays. We have a fireplace that will turn into a fireplace looking thing. And we have the bases of the countertops. These were done before, and they go on here like that. But the stone has to be painted on the bottom. And these crates were finished, so we'll put those aside. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be starting with the stone on the bases of the counters and the stone on the fireplace. That'll be painted a gray color. Okay, and I'm doing that first because after it dries, it needs to be washed with the dark gray wash. And I'm going to do all 3 pieces at the same time, and the straps on the doors are washed with the same wash. So once it's out, we'll just do that. So I'm going to paint the stone and let that dry, and while that's drying, I'm going to be painting the all the strapping, the metal strapping on this chest. And hopefully I'll be getting it mostly where it should go and not on the wood. If it gets on the wooden parts, then I'll just have to retouch that. Alright, using the brown paint and the smoky ink wash. So we'll see how that goes. Sometimes it goes okay, and sometimes it is a mess, but we'll see. I hope you all had pleasant holidays, that your visits with relatives went all right, and that you weren't attempting to do too much traveling by air, because I know that that was a real problem for a lot of people. I'm going to use this stand. I mean, I could just hold it on the top and the bottom and paint around it, but I'm going to use this stand today. What I'll be starting with, we got 2 of these, so I'll use them both. What I'll be starting with is a smaller brush, because I want to brush up to the edges of these wooden bits here. It's a larger brush to do all the fill in, because there's quite a lot of surface area here. Anyway, not quite clear why things weren't quite working. The sound, it looked like it wasn't at all, but now it is. Okay, so little brush, bigger brush. I'll be using a larger brush on this because I'm just going to be painting it, and I'll be painting the wooden parts, the bottom part up here and the mantle up here, after that's washed. Okay, and then I'll be using the smoky ink on the wood as kind of the last bits that need to be done. Start by stirring the paint. Always fun listening to that. Picture wiggle. Okay then, so here we are. Stirred up paint, brushes, not too badly abused during the Christmas special. Now I'll take my glasses off so I can see up close, as usual. And yeah, we'll start some New Year painting here. If I don't know quite what I'm going to be babbling about, or to fill with something quasi-entertaining. See what we can come up with. Holiday traditions, and see, got a nice, fairly clean line there. We talk about the bowl games. There was lots of football, and it really wasn't very good football. I was kind of disappointed. It was like there was no defense on the fields for the bowl games. Somebody got the ball, they ran 3 plays, There weren't any defenders on the field, apparently. So they scored a 57-yard touchdown, or a 72-yard touchdown, or a 63-yard touchdown, or a 49-yard touchdown. You know, and it was kind of, you know, back and forth. I guess that's kind of exciting in a way, but on the other hand, you know, it didn't show that the teams were too terribly good anyway. So the Big Ten took a beating. The two teams in the playoffs, Michigan and Ohio State. That's kind of in Michigan and Ohio. That's like the biggest rivalry one can have. One has to hate the other. You can't be in Michigan and like Ohio State even slightly, and you can't be in Ohio and like the University of Michigan even slightly. So it's kind of fun to have the two of them be in the playoffs, leading to a potential, you know, Big Ten grudge match for the national championship. But as it turned out, neither one of them played defense. They scored a lot of points and came close at the end, but kind of failed. U of M especially, it was really kind of sad. They played kind of poorly. You know, when you have a first and goal and you decide to go for it with a trick play and the trick play fails, you know, it's early in the game, you're moving the ball pretty well, you got a lot of confidence, okay, so that's the way it goes. But then when they started just giving up lots of touchdowns, especially when the quarterback threw 2 touchdown passes to the opposing team, that kind of slowed things down. Then they almost get back in the game, and they got a first and goal at the half-yard line, and fumbled it. Didn't even finish one play after they had that. That could have changed the whole game if that had worked, but it didn't. So, you know, they came within a touchdown of winning that game, but having basically given up 3 touchdowns. Not a good showing for the Big Ten. And I think the Big Ten did win the Rose Bowl, though. That used to be the biggest game for the Big Ten, because before the Bowl Championship Series thing started, that was the top team in the Big Ten played the top team in the Pac-10, and sometimes that was even for, you know, the national championship back when that was decided by a bunch of people voting. State. That was almost a football game. There was actually some defense going on. There were some decent plays. There was only 1 or 2 times when there was like this 90 million yard touchdown where the defense wasn't on the field. So it didn't get out of hand like the other games were. Anyway, so, you know, had to watch football over the holidays. What else was there? Yeah, I will do a flip. It's been a long time since I've done a flip. Something here. I came unprepared for flipping. There we go. I'll flip the fireplace. And it right side up. That was pretty cool. I'm going to put that aside and not push my luck with that any further. So, I painted the lines here where the wooden beams are. You know, I can use this larger brush and just fill in the rest of this. So, not knowing which teams any of you out there were supporting. Massive number of bowl games that were played. So now I know that some of you, your favorite teams won, and for some of you, they didn't. We have to remember, it's only a game, and not only that, it's a game that we weren't playing in. It doesn't reflect on you personally whether your favorite team won or lost. So if you get people out there who are supporting the team that beat your team and they're gloating, it's like, what are you gloating about? Were you on the field? Were you playing? Did you make that key tackle? Did you score that last touchdown? Did you kick that 58-yard field goal to end the game? No, none of those. So why are you gloating? You know, did you eat more potato chips than anybody else in the group that was watching? So there's no need for anybody to feel either superior or inferior based on which team won one of the bowl games. Because when it comes right down to it, you almost certainly had nothing to do with it, one way or the other. It's the bowl game lesson, I guess. I have to check the camera every now and then. Notice the Christmas music. Oh, the Christmas music is still playing from the special. Well, I think that's okay, because, you know, there's 12 days of Christmas. And that's not just a saying, because according to some of the faiths who celebrate Christmas as a like holiday sort of thing, you know, the Christmas season really does go on 12 days. It goes from December 25th until what they call the Epiphany. It's on January 6th. So the only dispute about that isn't whether there's 12 days or not, it's whether you count from December 25th being the first day of Christmas and January 5th being the last day of Christmas and Epiphany being something else, or whether you count starting December 26th with the Epiphany being the 12th day of Christmas. So what is today, the 4th? So this is like only the 10th day of Christmas. Yeah, the 10th or the 11th, depending on which counting tradition you come from. So it's fine that there's still Christmas music playing, because for many people, it's still Christmas. At least for a couple days. And having 12 days of Christmas is, you know, it's a really handy thing too for people who don't want to take down their Christmas decorations. It's like, why I don't take them down until the 12 days are over. So. days end on a Friday, so it's like the week. Well, it's like okay, Epiphany is the 6th of January. That's Friday. And we'll celebrate that day, and then there's the weekend, and the decorations can just stay up until the weekend. So that's probably, that's fine for a lot of people. And I'm hoping that this gray covers pretty well and that there's not a lot of touch-up to do. But that'll be drying. Paint this. I'll just hold on to it on the top and the bottom. These will be painted. Wood, a standard wood combination. Smoky ink. Those will be done after. Just getting the gray paint right onto, making sure it gets down in there. Yeah. I've done a bunch of these fireplaces before. I hope this one turns out well, too. Actually, I can show you a before and after. Here's one sitting right here. So, later, get the wash on there, and then try to get it on the inside of the firebox there on the bottom. Maybe even a little bit on the wood, where the kind of appear a little darker, where the smoke might go. So this fireplace will end up looking more or less pretty much like that. How did I paint the back of this? Did I paint? Yeah, I painted the wood on the top and the bottom. So that's what I'll end up doing with this one too then. A little strip of brown along the top there and the bottom. Be mostly gray. So yes, it's still Christmas, so there's still Christmas music, and that'll go on now until Friday, and then people will, there's some people who like on December 26th, they start taking everything down. Christmas is over. Let's get on with it. Kind of thing. And then there are other people who celebrate the full 12 days, and then there are other calendars too where Christmas is later and the 12 days start later. We need to respect those, but I'm just explaining why there's still Christmas music on here. Okay, so that's all grayed out now, and we'll be letting those dry. Those dry. And then they'll be getting the dark gray wash. That will also be used on the straps on the doors, so I'll be doing a bunch of dark gray washing. Some of it will be, oh my, okay. I'm just looking at this. So you can see it right down there in the corner, just a tiny little spot that's been missed. And that may or may not have been covered with the dark gray wash, but it sort of popped out there. I got this out just to look around, see if there's any more of that kind of touch-up that needs to be done. Okay. This is out of a little detail. I like to use this brush because it holds the paint nicely and flows well. Sometimes though it's just overlaps, and then I have to go to this brush. This tiny brush with just a couple of bristles to do it right, but usually that's a tiny detail on like a minifig. So I'm going to use this, and we'll see how well that works. Yeah, I really want to put this on the holder though, because there's no place to hold it. There's metal all over the place, so these looks a little the most dry. I'll pick up and hopefully not make too much of a mess. Okay, let's stick this one on here. Okay, this is going to be painted in a Viejo game color. It's called Gunmetal, which is a nice dark kind of. It's a little bit lighter than the Viejo metallic steel that we've been using for this kind of thing, but it's more viscous. It's thicker, which means that it doesn't flow as much, which means that it should stay where I put it, assuming I put it in the right spot. But yeah, it's supposed to stay where I put it, whereas the metallic, well, sometimes it's a very dilute paint. It'll flow into areas that I don't like it to go to. It's designed for airbrushes, so it's got more solvent in it. Well, let's squeeze some of this out, and we'll see how on this post-holiday morning I do in terms of getting this paint where I want it and not where I don't. This is to go very almost over the edge here, so push it up pretty high here. Give a hint of it being over the top there. Trying to start the year by putting paint where you want it and not where you don't. And I can see one downside to using this holder. The bottom band here. I'll try to paint it this way. It's a little bit, for me, risky because I like to paint up to the edge of the raised part, and this would be painting down from it, but I'm short of taking it off the holder, trying something else that might be what I need to do, so we'll give this a go here. wooden. Worked out more or less okay. So we'll just keep working around. Oh, I got off, yeah. Things got moved around quite a bit, so every now and then I guess I'll have to stop and make sure that I have the camera actually aimed more than less on the stuff I'm painting. But these chests are really kind of a cool accent piece. They can be treasure chests, they can be storage chests. Once they're done, they look really pretty cool. The 3D print, there's a lot of detail on it, a lot of wood grain, like individual planks that you can see at the tops of the chests. It's got a little lock thing. It's got some rivets along the side. We've done some that are a little more fancy, with maybe a lighter wood, and we paint the banding copper or brass. And that looks pretty nice when you do that. I think it looks really good in copper. We're just painting this dark kind of steel color. These are old chests. They didn't have steel then, so wrought iron maybe. Iron banding. This is iron banding on the chest. But there's once you get going on it, you discover it's all about banding on the chest. The back, which doesn't have that much, and the top, but if you look at the sides, the side has the top and the handle, so there's a lot on each side. These first at the back. So let me tell you a little bit about Dice and Dungeons, now that we're into the show for what's it now? A while. Dice and Dungeons is we're a group of people who started out with our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which, by the way, streams with a live chat on Sundays starting at 2. You can also catch it on YouTube later, or you can even listen to it as a podcast if you don't feel like watching us. If you don't have that ability or just want to listen to it on headphones or something, you can do that too. Our D&D campaign has been going on for a while now and is just amazing in terms of its content and performance. So if you haven't watched that or listened to it, I'd really encourage you to give that a try. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. The other thing Dice and Dungeons does is it does relaxing painting. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 until 2. With some exceptions, like for the holidays, we took a break from doing this painting. Okay. You can see it even leaves the keyhole in the lock. See that? That's good. yeah, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with, some exceptions. And those are usually posted on a social media calendar. On several social media. I guess one of them is just a social medium. And so you can check it out on one of the social mediums. On a social mediums or on multiple media. I've been doing a lot of this painting for the last month in December, doing a whole lot of dungeon tiles, but as you saw on the Christmas special, if you check that out, other members of Dyson Dungeons do that as well. In fact, later this month, I'm going to be taking a break, and Nikki or Alexis will be doing this instead. I'll miss like maybe a week and a half or something like that. So Dyson Dungeons does that. The 3D print behind me are some of the 3D printers. You can see those, and sometimes you can even hear them running. Almost everything I paint, or anybody paints on this screen, is printed right here. Primed in the paint box over to my left, and then finished off here during the stream. This was 3D printed as piece. You can see the printer does a really neat job. Does a really good job of doing that, getting it in. And then once it's painted it, and the painting is put on, the paint and the washes, they come to life and they look really nice. Sometime in the future, just so that you're aware of it, we hope to actually make the things that we do, our dungeon tiles. If you look back at what was streamed before the holidays, the dungeon tiles with the magnets in the base, the ball magnets, we're hoping to make some of those sets available to people for sale, for people who might want them, either as a collectible because they're really quite pretty, or even better, to use in their own D&D campaigns. That's what they were designed for, was to be used in the campaigns. We use them ourselves that way. So that's what Dyson Dungeons is about. About D&Ding, and then as we progressed with our campaign, thought it'd be really cool to have some pieces that instead of pretending there's a dungeon on like a piece of paper or something, there would actually be a dungeon. The 3D printer, and then started printing dungeon tiles, and then we said, boy, I bet we can paint these so that they look really cool, and then we started painting them, and they looked really cool. And then we got more and more elaborate. We made rivers and tents and campfires, sewer tiles with things that look like running sewage. Water. We, for some reason, spent a lot of time in sewers in our campaign at one point. It's like constantly in sewers. Sewer dungeon tiles looked really good. I mean, they were really very nice. But being in a sewer isn't that much. You know, it's not the greatest. But we haven't been in a sewer in ages. We've been in caves and castles, keeps, prisons, all sorts of places. We've had outside battles, we've had inside battles, but we haven't been in a sewer for a while. So. And we were just starting to get good at sewer crawls. Yeah, so anyway, these things are 3D printed behind us, and then they're primed, and then we paint them. And at some point in the future, we might even make them available for sale. But in the meantime, you can watch us paint these things on Relaxing Painting on Dice and Dungeons. And if you really, really like what you see or hear, you're very welcome to help support Dice and Dungeons by becoming a subscriber. Being a subscriber is a really good thing. And you can even support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Dice and Dungeons. So I have to do a little plug for that. Let me know what Dice and Dungeons was about. And I'll probably repeat this on the stream off and on, just as new people join in so that they can learn about what we were doing. Okay, I'm just turning this around to make sure I got all of it. Good. Squeezed out enough paint to cover all of this, so I have to squeeze out more. And, you know, as usual, about a third of it just ends up as a block here. Yeah, I got that. Take this. Got the banding and the handle all on that. Got the back and the hinges. Did the same here and here. And I can declare this chest successfully completed. Soft. Here next is check to see if that gray paint is dry enough to wash yet. But it doesn't really have to be because excuse me, I'm going to be using the dark gray wash. Little flags, they look like little flags, right? But on all these doors. So we're using the dark gray wash to very delicately darken the silver and highlight the rivets or doornails. So that's what I'll be doing, and I can get, there's 6 of these, so that should take a while. Plus, this is a cool thing. This is a hatch for a hatchway that goes down in one of the floor tiles. So there's actually an opening in the floor tile, and this sits into it, and it opens up, and your characters can disappear into it forever. Yeah, anyway. This wash, I'd like to make sure that the washes are very, very well mixed. Mentioned this before, there's this tendency, because the washes are more solvent than pigment, okay, because they're meant to be translucent, pigment will settle on the bottom, and then as you use it, it just gets darker and darker, and you don't get the consistency. So you want to make sure that this is very well stirred, and probably periodically we'll stir it some more just to make sure what I'm using is consistent one application to the next. What I most want to do is to make sure that this wash gets onto the silver parts and not onto the wooden parts. A tiny little touch here or there isn't going to show very much. A big blot probably will, and I'll try to wipe it off if that happens. But for the most part, I'll be using this smaller brush like I just was on the chest, and kind of just touching it to that surface as we go along. Grease some out here. And get started on it. You can see kind of a before and after there, how it tones down the shininess and how it picks up the ribbons. So this is a way of adding detailing. Fairly efficient. And since we make a lot of these, efficiency in manufacture is kind of important. Okay, so like there's these 6 doors here. You know, I'm taking my time doing this because I've got time on this stream. But, you know, if we had like 3 dozen of these doors, we'd want to be moving along a little bit. Anyway, there. So you can kind of see the before and after. It's fairly subtle, but it does make a big difference in the appearance of the item. So we'll turn it over. I'll need to remember this as I go along, that there are 2 sides to every door. That I could, this door is done, and then realize later, after I put things away and clean up, that no, the door is only half baked. You need to remember 2 sides to every door. Get the edges on the pivot, because that's what to do. And then stick it back on the holder thing. Bowl games. I'm sure you all had a chance to watch. Even if you didn't take the chance, there was the opportunity to watch many college football teams, most of whom actually had a winning record. And it's amazing how many bowl games and teams make it, but my understanding is that the revenue from those bowl games is, pretty substantial. The big bowls, like the Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, and things like that, tens of millions of dollars, and probably enough to pay part of the coaching staff costs. Anyway, the disappointing thing about the bowl games is that they were almost like basketball games without any defense. Just one score after the other without any stoppage. So it was, you get 4 plays to score your touchdown, otherwise it just sort of had that approach. And since that happened with all 4 teams in the championship series, whatever it's called, all 4 teams were like that, I'm expecting that the final between TCU and Georgia will be more of the same. Seems to be the way it went. At least I can tell the difference between what's done and what's not done. Pick these out and put them back in as I do them. Otherwise, it gets hard to reach over them. So yeah, lots of football. For us, there was just a lot of food around all the time. Had some excellent cookies, shortbread, homemade shortbread. That was really good. There's never enough of that. Really hard to make. To get it done right, you have to seriously sift the flour 7 times in order to get the texture right. And you think, well, okay, so that was, what the recipe said. And this recipe is like, it's an heirloom. Okay. Hate to think of it. Probably pushing 100 years old. So it says sift the flour 7 times, and you think, okay, well, 100 years ago you probably want to do that. What's wrong with the flour now? But to do it once or twice without the 7 sifts, and it really has to be done. Anyway, it's a very labor-intensive thing to do, to make the shortbread. It is amazing. And it doesn't last long. Anyway, that was part of it. And then, various and sundry kinds of cookies and chocolates and candies and eggnog and gain weight. Yes, all the weight that I lost over the summer came back in the span of a couple of weeks, which is probably why the only thing you see on TV now are weight loss ads, right? Because I wasn't alone. Anyway, it's just a temporary thing right now. There who, had a vegetarian meals, didn't overconsume anything. Congratulations. Seriously, that showed great restraint. But that wasn't what I did. Well, let's see what else. The thing about the shortbread. This happens with brownies too. I don't know if you've ever run into this. It's the Zeno's paradox of shortbread and brownies. So what happens is there's like this pan of brownies or this piece of shortbread sitting on a plate, and you come along and you take some. And when someone comes along and takes some, but no one wants to take the last of it, right? You don't want to be the one who just makes it all disappear so nobody else can have any. So you take like a piece of it, a third of it. Smaller piece left. And someone comes along and they don't want to be the one to finish it, not let anybody else have any. So they take half of it. And then you come back and you go, well, there's still some left, but I don't want to be the one who deprives everybody else of having any of this. So you just take half of it, and you find out that Zeno's paradox plays out in real life with your sweets. Means that it just keeps getting smaller and smaller, oftentimes by half, like literally by half. And it never finishes. And so it could be days of people walking by, each taking a little piece of it, but never quite finishing it. So I wonder if Zeno discovered his paradox that way. And it wasn't really a thought experiment, but that what happened is that like he has a baklava or something, like a tray of baklava sitting there. And he and his family, just everybody wanted to have some, but they didn't want to be the pig in the family and finish it. So every time he went by, it was like half the size as it was before. But it was never really gone. I think that that's actually a possibility. That Zeno discovered his paradox because of the tray of baklava in the kitchen. Anyway, yeah, we had Zeno's paradox shortly. Eventually, the half that gets left is so small, it's pretty much just a crumb. And then somebody goes up, I guess this is gone. And they just take the plate and wash it. And maybe that's the solution to Zeno's paradox. That it isn't that you can never reach the end. It's just that the end is in the dishwasher. Maybe Zeno is really young, and go, Mom, I was on my way to prove that this could never be finished. That there would always be half of it left, no matter how tiny. And you just went and washed the plate. Just destroyed the paradox. I'll take another tray next week and you can play with your paradox. Okay, this is coming along, and by the time I finish the other side and the trap door. The stonework should be dry enough to wash that too. This is taking teeny little bits of this wash. We put like 2 drops out there. Yeah. Looks like that instead. Trapdoor. This should show up nicely. It looks like these are chains across here. So I want to make sure I get enough on here to make up the texture in the print. So everything I did next. Hope you can see that better. That picks up the texture in that pretty nicely. So there. These doors are punched. Left. I'm going to use a larger brush to wash the stone. Two is I want to use this handle thing again, so I'm going to take the chest off. It's dry enough. That's nice. And put this guy back on. And use this larger brush. This soaks up the wash pretty well. And I'm going to start on the back here. Do is get the wash down into the border lines more than anything. Brush across the grain. And the wash goes into the border lines. And so as I was using next to nothing before, that got used up like almost immediately. Yeah, nothing like surface area. Same thing all around. Is I want to get it fairly even, but I want it mainly to be in the mortar lines to emphasize the this side's pretty good. I'm going to do this a little bit more. Okay, there's one. It's a pretty long way here. Almost got off camera again. It's kind of a thing I do. Okay, so I think that'll be all right. Just need a little. Do this fireplace. Just do this kind of uniformly. But later on, after I get the wood done, the mantle and the base, is I'm going to come back with the black wash and use that to make it look, the parts that are smoky. This I just want to make the stone look uniform. But then later I want to get the inside of the firebox here and the maybe a little bit up here and a little bit on the wood to look like it's been smoke from the fires. This is basically just to liven up the otherwise bland looking stonework. Let that dry a bit, and then what I need to do next is, on the fireplace at least, is paint the wood part. And then what will I be doing next? I don't know. Close this up. I will decide over break. Got a bunch of just dungeon tiles there that need to be base coated. Oh, this, I almost forgot. This guy here. Okay, I had to repaint this because it got too thick on it. I mean, the wash got too heavy. And so I repainted the floor. Just enough wash left in the well there for me to wash this floor so it looks like that. The wall was already done. It was just that the floor had, for some reason, was just extra dark. And so I repainted it with the base color. And now it's able to wash. Almost forgotten to do that. I had this sitting here to remind me that needed to be done. And actually it did. Almost too late. It served its purpose and reminded me to do it. Doing next is I think I'll go ahead and do this, is the wood on the base and the mantle here. Do that in flat earth, and then I'll ink that, and then we will be done with the fireplace. Paint. There it is. Keep holding it. So I'm just going to take one of these guys off the stand. This on. I can rotate it and get around to the nooks and crannies. We need to use this smaller brush on most of it, if not all of it, because we got some lines that need to be well demarcated. I've been able to do this with a great deal of success. do it again. Meaning get it down where I want it, right? I'd like to use a larger brush on this, but need to fill this in, but I'm not sure that there's enough of it to bother with. So I'll just use the smaller brush to finish painting now. Yeah, it's not working well. Well, yeah, I'm just going to finish the lines with the smaller brush, and then I will use the larger brush again just to fill it in. Otherwise, it's just not working well. Yeah, paint the line of what would be the wood on the bottom and the top here on the back. You don't ever see the back, or at least it'd be unusual because this is designed to be put up against the wall where a fireplace would be, right? But, you know, I like to do high quality work, so I'll finish this off this way. This mantle doesn't really show very much, so what I'm going to want to do is get close to, but not. I just want to paint that line across the top, and then I'll get the larger brush out and finish it off. And then we'll let this dry, and then we'll pull out the smoky ink and make the wood look like that. This larger brush because it just applies the paint just so much more evenly to a larger surface area. between from the unpainted surface and painting above the painted surface so we don't slop it all over there. We managed to pretty much not slop it. Sure, this paint seems to have not been mixed well. Stirred it long enough, but it's acting very transparent. Weird. So if I use it again, I need to note that the pigment is not, yeah, it needs a major stir. I think this will be okay. The color is on there all right. And when it's washed, it'll look all right. Yeah, it's not mixed very well. Using it again for some time, but you'll have to remember to do that. Okay, well, that's got to dry before I can finish it. The doors are done. The bases of these counters are done, so that now we can glue those tops onto them. That's what they'll look like. They're pretty nice. Over to the side. The chest is finished. I think the chest came out really quite well. Okay. Except on the bottom. Right along here. What happened here is that was on the sticky tack. And it didn't get painted, so having caught that, I'm going to just squeeze out the tiniest bit of a drop of this gunmetal paint again. And let me touch up the bottom of the chest. I don't want to call it finished when it obviously is not. Find out what to do next. Okay, now the chest is done. It's pretty good. You wouldn't mind having that in your room, probably. Clean these guys off. Look aside. Yeah, we got this floor right. You can see that still a little wet, but they match now. Done. Making some space here. So I'm going to go over to the to be painted pile and bring a bunch of stuff back, and we'll get to it. Okay, these are a bunch of dungeon tiles to one or more of the sets. These are cut stone tiles as opposed to the rough stone. And these are going to be all base coated in a medium blue, and then the walls will have accent blocks painted on, and they'll end up looking start out like this, and they'll end up looking like that. Okay, and I've got a lot of them here. Not as many as there were last week when they all had a million of them, but there's quite a few. What I can do first is show you how these work, because they're really pretty cool. It's always good to see this. These are 3D printed back there, okay, and they're printed all in one piece except for this little base plate. I should show it to you. Okay, so this is like one whole piece printed, the wall and the floor and the base. And in the bottom of the base, behind this base plate, are little holes, and ball magnets go in there. And so, you've heard about magnetized tiles. Oftentimes they just have a little disc magnet in the back, and you have to put them on a metal plate. No, these are really magnetized so that when you put them next to each other, they stick. But you don't need any special plate or anything. And you can take them apart and reconfigure them very, very easily and quickly. In fact, you can even do it during gameplay. And we did that once. We had a mimic dungeon, basically, where we went into the dungeon and we thought we won the fight, but the dungeon reconfigured itself. And we were stuck in another one. Another battle. Boom. There. Now you're here. And then boom, now you're not. You're in this little room and you're stuck. So these are really pretty cool because, you can just reconfigure them any way you want. And you don't need a special platform or anything. You just need your imagination and a whole bunch of these. And you can make just about any kind of thing you want. Now, I did say that these were cut stone. There is one exception to this. This wall here. This is the rough stone. You can see the difference between the cut stone and the uncut stone, especially on the floor. This is a special one. It's hard to describe, though. This pin here, there's another wall like this, but it's a separate wall that goes on there, and it rotates, and it's got a trap in it. And if you look back at some of the streams that I did, sometime in early December, I think, you can actually see I showed you how those worked, because I had finished a couple of these trap tiles. There's basically a wall like this, but it's got an opening on it, and either a flame or a gas cloud will come out of it. And those are magnetically attached to the inside of the little spout. And the reason that they rotate is that the trap is on one side and the blank wall is on the other, so that you can't, as you're playing, you can't see that there's a trap. Okay? So, in fact, it is a trap that you can't detect. Unless you use detect traps, then it works. Anyway, what I'm going to be doing... No, this doesn't... you can see this. This isn't magnetized yet, so I'm not going to do this, but these are the holes here where the ball magnets go in, and then that base plate, this little thin base plate, goes in over that and holds it all together. But this one isn't done yet, so I'm not going to paint that. These are pillars, and these aren't magnetized, but these are set up. These are set pieces, so that, say you did Here's a, and you wanted there to be pillars in the hall. There you go. Set them up like that. So these are designed to match the dungeon tiles and to be used as, set pieces when you set up a dungeon. This is a cauldron. It looks very cauldron-y, doesn't it? This is one of, it's even got bubbles in it. So this is one of the detail pieces that I'll be working on probably next week, because I'm going to base coat these, and then those need to dry, and then I need to paint the accent blocks, and then I need to wash them. So it's a many step process, but this is all one color, all of this. The other things, just to give you a head start on the things that will be coming. These little handful of things will probably take as much or more time than all the rest of these dungeon tiles and everything I've done in a long time. These are the flames, and they work in two different ways. One is, if you look, again, I'll encourage you to look back at some of the ones from last time, is there's a floor tile with a cauldron in it. And that, not really a cauldron, it's kind of a vessel of some sort. A flame comes out of it. So this is going to be painted all flamey. And then the trap tiles has a flame that comes out, shoots across, covers the entire 10 feet of the hallway. Burns your party. Or this is going to be a gas cloud. This will be kind of a challenge to paint. I'm trying to decide how to make it all look gas cloudy. I did one once before. It was okay. So I hope to do a little better job with it this time. So those are some of the detail pieces. This is a sarcophagus. Nicely detailed. It's got a little knight on the top. Some details around the edges. This goes in one of the dungeon sets, the Necromancer lair, I believe. And this gets painted in some detail. And then this is a throne room throne. And this actually takes quite a lot of work. Let's see if the other one is here still. No, we had a finished one. This is all done in dark stone. And then these chains, there are lots of chains, are done in gold, bright gold. And there's like a jewel here and silver wings. So this turns out to be, a lot of detail work, but it turns out to be pretty fancy. So this is going to go like on a stone pedestal. Here and here is stone, and then the throne itself is made out of darker stone. So these guys will be what I'll be working on next after I'm done with the dungeon tiles. So I'll just keep them here. Now these are to be base coated in the same blue that this is base coated in. I'm using this stuff called medium blue, which doesn't look at all like this. It looks much brighter and bluer, but when it's washed with the gray wash, it looks very stony. Okay. I don't know how much is left in here. We'll find out. And it was can't see the clock. 11:30. Okay, got a half hour. I'm going to get started on this, and we'll go until around noonish. I'm putting a glove on because I'm going to be holding these. So this is one step of the many-step process for each of these tiles. I'll go explain what they are again. The walls and the floor are 3D printed as one piece, like this corner piece is all one print, which is pretty cool because you don't have to worry about the walls breaking off or anything like that. And then this little base plate, little flat base plate that sort of snaps into the bottom is printed. And then the one I showed you before, the magnets I put in, there's 8 magnets on the bottom of this, little ball magnets, and that's attached. Okay, so you print it, prime it, attach the magnets, and then it's primed, and then it's base coated with the base coat color, and then it's touched up because there's inevitably little spots that didn't get the paint in, like inside one of these little grooves or down on the floor or something where the paint didn't set or where it pulled off as it dried. And then the accent blocks are painted in, and then the whole thing is washed. So there's all of those steps going into each one of these tiles. And then when it's done, it will look like this and will behave like that. So there's a good before and after look. And this is after steps 1, 2, and 3, and 4. There's 4 steps already put into this before we even start making it look like this. Okay, I'm going to give this paint a good stir. If it's anything like that brown paint, it's sitting for a bit, and the pigment is not well distributed. Okay, so I'm going to use this fairly large brush. Okay, sometimes I've actually used this one. Whoa. Whoever used this for the Christmas special did not clean it very well. That is like... Okay, that's going to require some serious soaking before it can be used again. But we'll use this brush and get going. I wonder if this would work. Yeah, I think I can do this. I'm going to use this sticky tack thing for the floor, just the floor tiles alone. It doesn't work with these because I can't maneuver it enough. So what I do with these is I end up holding it on the top, painting the whole thing, and then touching up the top where I was holding it. Don't have to worry about touching up the bottom because that's the bottom. But for these plain floor tiles, there's no way to grab it that way. So I'm going to use this and then just pick it up off the bottom and, peel a little bit of the paint off in the corners, but that's part of the touch-up process, which is an essential part of doing this. So enough chatting, and let's... Okay. This is empty. So that's not going anywhere. Need to find a new bottle. Of it because it goes quickly. Okay. Okay. Yeah. We got a bunch more of these. This is a brand new bottle. And you can see there, the pigment and the solvent are very much not together. This is going to be a bit of stirring, so sorry, more buzzing sounds while I mix this up on our mixerator. In case you're wondering what's buzzing like this, yeah, I'll show you. Here's this thing. This is rotates rapidly and vibrates and lights up, right? What it does. As it vibrates, it shakes the mix. But that's what's buzzing when I'm mixing the paint. This is a new bottle, and it needs a real thorough mix. Now with these larger bottles like this, you can open the top. Before we got this, it's possible to open it up and really have to stir it from the bottom. Popsicle stick, basically. With the Viejo paints that come in these squeeze bottles, that did not work. I mean, you can see that this is red, but the solvent is actually kind of a cream color near the top. Couldn't get in there with a stick, so ended up shaking it. And there was no way to shake it well enough, long enough. You just get bored with shaking it a little bit. So we invested in this stirring thing here. I think it's made for labs. It's pretty expensive, but it makes a big difference, especially with the Viejo squeeze bottle paints. And in terms of this, when you get a fresh bottle like this. Okay, hopefully that's enough. We'll find out. If not, wrap it up and start again. So one of the conventions we started is because, an open bottle and a closed bottle, well, I'll probably put the camera back where I'm painting. An open bottle and a closed bottle look pretty much the same. We would run into having 2 or 3 open bottles of the same color, which was not a good way of doing it. So we started a convention of just putting a blob of paint. I'm going to use the tiny bit that's left here on top of it. And now we know that that's an open bottle because it's open. So, in the spirit of not wasting any paint at all, I'm going to use up a little bit that's left in the bottom of that bottle. And I'm working it down into the gaps between the tiles because we want that to be dark. And this is a light primer, kind of a sandy colored primer. Which will sometimes get in there. Actually, this is. End up using a smaller brush eventually, just to reach down during the touch-up phase. If it stays too light. Anyway, yeah, I mean, there's hardly any paint left in this bottle, but there's enough to paint floor tiles, so no sense having wasted it. There's a lot of texture on these, so sometimes you have to kind of swirl it around to get it into all the little nooks and crannies. And then, sometimes the paint will just pull away. So yeah, I think I've got enough paint in that jar. Kind of surprising to get at least one of these done, maybe more. Didn't waste any paint. mean, there's several cents worth of paint on here. And anybody in manufacturing knows that every fraction of a unit of currency is important. Sometimes that just gets really silly. So, I mean, auto suppliers, like the auto manufacturers, many of them have supply chains where they buy parts from other manufacturers, like say a bumper cover. Okay. The manufacturer will say, okay, this bumper cover is just too expensive. You need to cut your cost, or else we're going to find another supplier. So this bumper cover might cost, oh, I don't know, it's molded plastic, and then it's painted with a primer. So it might cost, I'll just say something like $98 to make. Really? Because, you know, when I smashed my bumper and I needed a new bumper cover, they charged me $350 for a bumper cover. Yeah, that included the painting it to the body color, but still, really. But that's another story. Anyway, so say it costs $98 to make this, and or at least that's the price. We'll say that's the price that the supplier charges to the auto manufacturer. And the auto manufacturer says, no, our margins aren't high enough. If we pay you $98 for this bumper cover, so we're going to pay you $93 for this bumper cover. So the manufacturer of the bumper cover needs to go back and squeeze all of their prices, and they probably go down to their supplier of the raw material, the plastic material, and the supplier of the paint that they use for the primer, and they say, you know, I can't pay you $100 a gallon for your primer anymore. I can only pay you $91, and on, and they just squeeze and squeeze, and so they squeeze like a couple of bucks off the price of this bumper cover. Everybody's unhappy all the way down the line, all the way back to, you know, the people who are grinding the, you know, making the raw material for the pigment for the primer and so on. So, yeah, the smaller you are and the further down on the chain you are, the more susceptible you are to the squeezes. So, yeah, so they save a couple of bucks on this bumper cover. And then the people who are making the bumper cover turn on their TV in October, you know, when model change time comes around, and the manufacturers say, and now for the next three weeks, we're giving you a $1,500 rebate, whatever it is. So they just squeezed you and everybody else for like $6 off of a bumper cover, and then they're knocking $1,500 off the price of the vehicle. Back the next day to your bumper cover factory and say, why am I making bumper covers for this? Anyway, I've often wondered about that, about, you know, what is it like to be a manufacturer of parts for an auto manufacturer who like squeezes you for sometimes pennies like just a couple of cents off the price of an item, just to get it cheaper. And then you see an ad where they're basically knocking as much as your entire month's sale off the price of the vehicle. Anyway, that's how things work. Food chain, isn't it? The supply chain, but it's really the food chain that you're on. Anybody out there, where you are on the food chain? I'm sure you've had experience on both ends of that kind of thing. This brush isn't getting down into that, so I'm not going to do that now, but when I do the touch-up, I'll be using a smaller brush that'll fit into those cracks and making sure that the paint gets down into it. These floor tiles are highly variable. In the past, maybe not. They're all pretty much the same, except that very first one I painted that had a really different texture to it than the rest. It's little divots in them, and it's getting the paint down into the little divots is can't just brush it flat, because then it brushes over the tops of it. Fortunately, this acrylic paint doesn't show brush marks, at least on surface areas of this size. I suppose, if it were a really big surface area without any texture to it, that there would be brush marks. But, I can just swirl this around and back and push paint down into it, and there aren't any brush marks. And I think it's a combination both of the surface texture, because the more texture there is, the less likely it is you'll see a brush mark, and the qualities of the paint itself. Anyway, we've been pretty happy with it because of that. It's just really easy to work with. About, but haven't looked at using the airbrush. We put the primer on with an airbrush. Nikki does that. Talked about doing the base coat that way too. Airbrushing, though, uses up a lot of paint. And it's not that this stuff is hugely expensive, but it's not cheap either, especially when you're doing a fairly large quantity of things. So an airbrush would use up, probably 50% more paint. I'm not sure. We'd have to decide in terms of time, the value of the time of someone like me who's painting. Fortunately, with Dyson Dungeons, my time is like dirt cheap because I'm retired and I don't cost anything at all. But yeah, we'd have to calculate whether the time saved using an airbrush versus brush painting the base coat on, which one makes it more worthwhile. And then there's the amount of time it takes as well. It's not entirely clear, because you'd have to do touch-up anyway. that airbrushing something like this would be terribly much faster than just hand brushing it. Anyway, those are things to work out in the future. Down there with this brush, which is really nice for the surfaces, but not so terribly good for the crevices. But the smaller brush, this fits right in there, practically slots in, and it spreads the paint pretty quickly. And we'll see that when we get to the touch-up phase, which might be today. I don't know. There's a lot of tiles here. See it in the touch-up phase. How the brush gets down in there and it's the insides of the cracks pretty well. Sometimes, you can do, when you do a dark wash, like the dark gray on there, you can get the wash to get down in there, but it doesn't always. And if it doesn't, and it's not painted ahead of time, then you're looking at your tile and all of a sudden you got a bright spot instead of a dark spot. Lines between the floor stones. And that's not the look we're going for. Okay, now we're moving these along. I think there's one more. And then we got a bunch of balls. So yes, I'll just repeat again a little bit of an explanation of what Dice and Dungeons is about. So if anybody's joining in for the first time, we're a group of people who started out doing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which is ongoing and streams on Sundays at 2, 3 Sundays a month. We took a little break for the holiday. It'll be starting up again. I'm guessing it'll be starting up again this Sunday. The campaign's been going on a long time. Us characters are very entertaining. We are a lot of fun to watch and listen to. I can guarantee that because I've actually watched and listened to us after we've done it, and yeah, we're pretty good. We're pretty good entertainers. We spend a lot of time doing retail shopping and food, finding specific food on it, so it's not just all just dungeon crawls and combat. There's nothing more time consuming, if nothing else, than going into a magic shop. Some of us are savvy shoppers, some of us are not so good. And then there's combat, where we almost always come close to dying. At least my character does frequently. I both said, well, I'm a fighter, so they stick me in front. And the enemy beat on me. Times that doesn't, sometimes that's much more unpleasant than I would like. Anyway, and that's all part of the game. That's how Dice and Dungeons started. And then as we moved along, decided, it might be interesting to play in a dungeon instead of just on a board. We started out with, a the grid pattern plastic board that we used, and we used little 2D features and minifigs. It's kind of, I mean, that was okay. Then we got a 3D printer, kind of just to do it, almost. Decided to start printing things that we would play on, and that just kept expanding and expanding, and got better and better at producing these tiles. Started out with tiles that needed a whole lot of assembly, epoxying, and modifications, and so on. Alexis worked really hard at the design and came up with what we've got now, which are these pieces that have bases, magnets in the base that allow you to reconfigure things very quickly, and they hold together really well. So we've had, it's been an enjoyable experience learning how to do these, getting the painting techniques down so that they both look good and it doesn't take forever to do a dungeon, even for our own use. You don't want to spend the better part of 3 weeks putting together a dungeon. You want it to look good, but you want it to be reasonable in terms of the time demands. Kept working on that. And finally, we're kind of settling down into what we're doing now, which is several dungeon sets. This is cut stone. We have rough stone. We have wood, stucco. Those are really pretty. We've even made some sewers in the past. So Dyson Dungeons. So as we're putting these together, we thought, well, why not? We'll show people how this is done. So we started the relaxing painting stream, where we kind of alternated between dungeon tiles like this, which I've been doing now for some time because we have a bunch of dungeons we're trying to finish. We came up with some set designs. I think there's 8 of them, and we're trying to get at least one of each of them finished sooner or later. And we also paint a lot of minifigs, little animals. If you look at the screen, we've got like a crocodile, we've done eagles and sorts of things. A little lizard army. So sometimes you see dungeon tiles and sometimes you see minifigs, and lately it's been dungeon tiles, and it will be for a little while until we get all the dungeons done. I haven't painted one of these in a little, just how much surface area there is when you try to get the paint in between all of these bricks. And then go back and, it's 99.9% completed, but then there's always like a spot that you missed. And that's why we do the touch-up phase. And even then there's a touch-up of the touch-up sometimes. Doing the wash, sometimes we'll find spots that were kind of missed. Right now, doing, I think, a pretty good job of getting it into the bricks. A pretty not good job of getting it into between the floor tiles. This brush isn't working for that. So the smaller brush will be doing a lot of in between these lines. Anyway, Dice and Dungeons started out as a D&D campaign, which continues to this day and will continue for a good long time, because we've explored, I don't know, probably only 20% of the entire world, maybe not even that our DM has invented for us. We have had many interesting adventures. Some of them have been very heavily food or retail shopping focused, and some of them have been let's see if we can survive this combat. And so far, mostly we have, although I have been mostly dead, I think twice during this campaign. Not a pleasant thing. And then we started printing dungeon tiles just for our own use, because we got a 3D printer, and started painting them, and then figured out how to make them really cool and reliable and sturdy and good looking and all of those things, and said, well, let's just do more of that. And not only that, let's show people how we're doing it. So we started painting dungeon tiles on Relaxing Painting, and then we said, I bet people are bored of dungeon tiles, or bored with, I should say, to be a little bit more grammatically correct, bored with dungeon tiles. So we started doing a bunch of minifigs, and that was kind of fun for a while, but now we want to actually produce dungeon tiles. And so we are I am at least working really hard at getting a couple of complete dungeon sets done and ready for showing off. And I'm working on some miscellaneous pieces to complete some sets that are almost but not quite completed. This is an interesting one. If you can see it, this is an arrow slit. Very narrow on the outside. That's the outside wall. You can't shoot in, but you can shoot out. So that's kind of cool pieces that we have in, I think it's like a throne room that is designed to be defended. What I'm doing here is I think this is like step 5 in the construction of one of these, which is putting on the base color coat. The next step after this is touching up all the spots that didn't get adequately base coated. And then the next step after that is to paint accent block colors with kind of a brown color, so that it's not all uniform. And then the final step is to put wash on it to make it look like more like stone and less like plastic that's been painted. But anyway, Dice and Dungeons has moved into the dungeon tile business. And at least that's what it feels like to me, because that's what I've been doing for the last month or so. And probably will be for a while. And would like to invite you, if you like this stream, or if you like our D&D show, please subscribe. Subscribers are welcome. They help support what we're doing. And if you really like what we're doing, you are invited to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/diceanddungeons. And every little bit helps. Gotta pay for the paint somehow. Doing out of time here. And a little afternoon. I'm going to do one more of these. And then I'm going to take a break, because I need to take a break, and the paint needs to be stirred anyway. So do this. This one is a window. Oh, nope, I can't paint this yet. There's during the printing phase there was this is part is unsupported, and so there's just little strands and strings that need to be cleaned out. So at the beginning, before I get the paint out again, after the break, I'm going to get out make an X-Acto knife or something and clear that out before I paint it. So I'll do this wall, this curved wall. The curved corners are pretty cool. It's a square corner here, but there's also a curved corner. And we'll see after the break, there's a giant curved corner. Anyway, I'm going to finish this curved corner, and then we're going to take a break. After break, I will clean up that tile that needs to be cleaned up before it's painted, and then we will finish some more base coating, and then do some touching upping. See how far we can get today. What I'd like to be able to do is get all the base coat done and touched up, so that on Friday I can spend Friday doing accent blocks. That involves painting much less surface area, but is slower because I'm painting like one brick at a time. Doing that Friday, hopefully, and then if that paint dries, I'm going to be able to do some washing. If that paint doesn't dry, I'll be starting on some of the detail things like the cauldron and the crypt and things that I had showed you a little bit earlier. There's a throne. Those are going to take some time, but they're really cool looking. Tackle some of the flames. I've done a bunch of the flames, the campfires and stuff. And for my character, I'll set Ralph's flaming sword. We have more flame-colored paints now. We had just like orange, red, and yellow, but now we've got various shades of those. So, I don't know, maybe I can make a really good looking flame. Let's see how that works. Eventually it'll have to be done, so I'll have to get to it, but I'm not sure if that'll be as early as Monday or sometime later next week. So yeah, I'm going to fill the time here by babbling nonsensically a little bit, a couple of minutes while I finish this one, and then take a break. And after break, do a little cleanup and finish some base coating, and then do some touching up. So this is just working the paint into the gaps between the blocks, which is also where most of the touching up ends up happening. And sometimes when the paint dries, it shrinks a little bit sometimes, and it pulls away from some of those areas underneath. Okay. There. Too bad. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these plain floor tiles, and I've got 3 wall tiles done. So I've got 1, 2, 3, single wall tiles and a giant 4x4 corner, and then 6 pillars. So I'll be doing those after break. So I'm going to keep the ones that are drying aside because those will be the first ones to get touched up, of course. And then as I'm touching those up, hopefully these will dry and we'll be able to get that finished yet today. And this is the dead one. Anyway, yes, thanks for joining in so far. I will be back in about 15 minutes or so. Okay, see you then. Hello again, back from break. What we're gonna do is move the drying stuff to the side. Get to the painted stuff here. Clean the brush. Finish the first at base coating. Use dungeon tiles. Done doing the first phase of the base coating on these. Be getting out a smaller brush and doing touch up on the ones I did before the break. And then we're going to let them dry. Giving the paint a good stir here. Okay. Oh yeah, what I said I needed to do is in this particular tile, which has this arched window on it, there are strings of the filament that were left on it that need to be cleaned off. And so what I should have done earlier, I didn't, is get out the X-Acto knife. Clean that off. because we don't need a window. It looks all stringy. Window that looks bricky. Well, that was pretty straightforward. I mean, it was just extra strings on there, so they weren't really adhered. It was, yeah, so I cleaned up, pretty well, pretty fast. But now, when you look at it, it looks more like it should. Sometimes you'll get that with a 3D printer. This is a filament printer. When it tries to print on something that is unsupported like that, basically bridging the gap, sometimes there'll be some extra filaments there. Okay. Well, since I have this one in hand, I'll just go ahead and start with it. Paint again. Now, before we took the holiday break, I was able to get this off to the side and still show what was going on. We reset the studio completely for solo painting. Yeah, it was set up for the Christmas special. There are 3 people painting Christmas trees. So a little bit of a different setup than we've got going here now. See on circle, I'm not painting in the typical kind of a cross way, because there's a lot of texture. There's little divots and things in the floor stones. In order to make sure that the paint gets in there, I need to push it down. This brush is too big to get in between there, but I'll do some of it anyway. Same thing here, just to get the paint down into the mortar joints between the blocks. Those to be darker, as dark, if not darker, once the wash is put on, than the rest of the blocks, just to, to highlight the texture of it all. You kind of paint across and in and that kind of thing. Make sure that it gets in there. And in this case also, it's not just painting those, but it's painting on the inside of the window frame. This is called medium blue. It's kind of grayish blue color. And what we discovered is that these bluish colors, once you put a dark wash on them, like a dark gray or a black, actually look more like good. They do a better impression of stone than gray with a black wash. And I think maybe it's just kind of like I'll call it the depth of the color. Maybe it's the way it catches the light, but the blue looks really quite good. We also make a set of these kinds of cut stones with the gray, and I think what happens is that the blue kind of makes it look dark. You have foreboding kind of, like a foreboding look to your castle or dungeon. This blue with the dark gray wash, both in the cut stone and especially in the rough stone, captures that look really pretty well. But if you want it to look a little bit more regal, the gray is lighter in tone, and so we have that option as well. But these pieces all go together in a couple of sets that are the darker blue. First step of the base coat, which is to paint 99.9% of it, and then come back after it's dried and do the touch-up, like getting a smaller brush into these spaces between the floor tiles. This is another one of those arrow slits. It's kind of V-shaped on this side and narrow on this side. These are pretty cool. When you're doing a castle, that castle cheat kind of thing, where you want to be able to shoot your arrows or spears to defend it. You want to go through one of those, and if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, I think that allows you to use the rule where you are at least partially undercover, which makes it harder to hit you, which is the whole point of an arrow slit in your castle life, which is to be hard to hit while you're shooting. Two dogs, and I don't know if that sound was filtered out or not. We have a sound filter on the microphone that filters out most things other than voices, things like the humidifier on the furnace, that kind of thing. But the dogs were just running around upstairs, making a lot of noise on the floor. So if you heard that, these dogs would, like a lot of dogs, all of a sudden, huge burst of activity for maybe 15 to 30 minutes. Just moving, just running, and having a grand old time, and then they get exhausted and fall asleep for probably 3 or 4 hours. Then they'll get up and eat something and drink something and go to the bathroom outside and then fall asleep again, and they'll get up and do the 30 minutes of running around again. Anyway, they were just getting their running around, apparently. So if you hear that rumbling noise and that sort of thing, if it's coming through, and I don't know, it is the dogs getting their exercising. See here. Yeah, this is coming along okay. We have one more single wall, and then a 4x4 rounded corner, which is a really nice piece. Big rotunda in a dungeon. Put two of those together. In an arc, and it's pretty impressive. And then I've got these pillars that I used as set pieces when you set up your dungeon. Set these pillars out on the floors. Get as much as I can to keep the touch up to a minimum. Is put things away where they belong. That way you can find them again when you want them. But I just put exactly knives away where they didn't belong because I just wanted them out of the way. Which means the next time I want them, I won't be able to find them because I'll look for them in the place where they usually go. People are really different that way. I mean, for some people, I'm one of those that things need to go in the same place. Okay, they need to go where they belong because when you want them, that's where you look for them. There are other people who just put things wherever, and when they want one, they have to find it. And what I discovered is that, at least in my limited experience with a limited number of people, is that people like me who put things in a place because that's where you look for them are actually really quite poor at finding things if they're lost or misplaced. Whereas people who just set things down wherever and then find them later are quite good at finding things. Even if it's not something that they set somewhere. I mean, it's just something that was lost by someone else. And they're much better at finding things than people who, like me, who just put things in the same place and expect to find them there. And I suppose part of the habit of just putting things wherever and finding them leads you to having excellent finding skills because you don't want to waste a whole lot of time looking for stuff all the time. You just get really good at findings. And of course, I'm sure you've noticed that if you're looking for something that was lost, it's always in the very last place you look. Okay, almost done with this wall. We want to do the big giant curved one. It actually does take a while. It's a very large piece. It's basically a 4x4 tile. It's 4 of these. The walls are, the wall, although it doesn't look that massive, there's a lot of surface area on it, because it covers that entire space. And then we'll do the pillars. And I do believe that by the time I get around to finishing the pillars, the stuff I painted before the break will be dry enough that I'll be able to handle them to touch them up. And I need to hold what I'm touching up because I need, in order to get the touch up really well done, need to rotate them in every conceivable direction because the spots that aren't painted sometimes can only be seen if you just rotate it just right. If it's not rotated in a very specific way, you can't even see it. Yeah, so that's a thing. And even then, after rotating it like in every conceivable direction, it turns out that there were some inconceivable directions, apparently. And when you're putting on the wash later, you go, how could I possibly have missed that? But then you pull out the base coat paint again. So there's always just this little spot, but it's in a way that, in a place that shows really bright, especially with this lighter colored colors. It goes through. Yeah, so this is a 4x4 curved wall, so it's a pretty significantly large piece. And the way this prints is that the indentations between the blocks is actually a little deeper than on some of the other tiles, so it takes a little more paint and a little more attention to get it into the gaps. The interesting thing about this one is, when you're painting the accent blocks, I try to get somewhere like between 2 and 5 on each wall. So on a single wall, there'd be like 2 to 5, usually like 3 or 4. On a corner, each square corner, there's 2 walls, and so there'd be 3 on one and 4 on the other or something, so that might be 7 or even 8. You get something like this, and all of a sudden you're looking like at a dozen accent blocks. It's because that's a big wall. You can see already, how much better these look with just the base coat on them compared to just the primer. Get the accent blocks on them, and they look a little weird actually, because the paint is flat. But then you get the wash on them, and then they really. So that multi-step process, and there's many steps. Okay. That's it. There's only one other 4x4 tile that we use, and that's the
slime pit for the necromancy lair. Which, if you're watching there was just one, the purple one just showed up. It just got off screen. Those are pretty cool, those pits. It's a many step process. Probably at some point in the future, we've got a couple of those done and base coated. One of them needs to be washed yet. And once those are done, then the pool, in order to make it look like a real liquid, there's a base color. We're using green. Yeah, we're doing them in green. And then there's this thing called realistic water that we found, which is a clear plastic rosin. It's liquid in the bottle. And that gets poured in, and drops of color get put into that. And then they're basically kind of randomly swirled around to give quick look. It dries. It takes a day or so to dry. It is realistic water. It looks like it's wet. So the pools themselves are not just dry painted. And it's even better than a gloss paint. I mean, a gloss paint could kind of make it look that way, but this is a clear, transparent material. So you actually get the look of a liquid. In this case, a colored greenish pool. If you watch the little changing pictures under me on the screen, they actually come around occasionally, and there's 3 of them. There's a red one, a green one, and a purple one. So you can see what they look like. And it doesn't, they're kind of small, so the pictures, so it doesn't really do it justice, but it does look like a bubbling liquid. It's a neat effect. We've also used it for river tiles. Notice there, like that. So we painted the blue and the ripples and stuff underneath, and then put the liquid, the realistic water on top of that, and it looks like it's layered water. Okay, now I'm doing these pillars, and these pillars are set pieces. They just set. They set inside the dungeon, wherever you want them. So you can set them up next to each other. You can hide behind them. You can make like a colonnade. Do a whole lot of things that are decorative with these pillars. These are also one of those deceptive things. You know, you just look at it and it doesn't look like much, but there's a lot of surface area on it. And then painting the accent blocks on them are a little bit of a challenge because they're curved. And you can only see like one side at a time, so it's kind of tempting to paint maybe too many of them. But the technique is the same. You know, you print them and prime them and base coat them and touch them up. And accent blocks, and then wash. And then they have the same look then as the cut stone walls. You know, all fits together. You know, use as many or as few as you want, depending on what you're doing with your particular dungeon at the moment. Yep. this is easier than holding it. There's no really good place to hold it. Well, when taking it off by the little corners, the glove pulls the paint away. So these need touching up too on the corners where you touched them. Those two corners need to be touched up, but there's a lot of touching up, so it's not that much extra work. Get the paint into the crevices. So there's a purple one. Been as interesting as some of the others I talked about. The disappointment of the lack of defense in the bowl games, especially in the College Bowl Championship Series games, where it was like, throw the ball, score a touchdown, run the ball, score a touchdown, throw the ball, score a touchdown, who's going to score his most touchdowns? Is the clock going to run out? That kind of thing. Instead of kind of like grinding it out. Ball control. Running out the clock kind of thing that sometimes is a little more interesting than just 70-yard touchdown plays over and over. I mean, it made for kind of an exciting game in that where you're going to score 2 before they score 1, or they just scored and you're going to score, and then it went back and forth. In some ways it was like, really? Are these guys, what are they even doing? Is there a defense on the field? So that because all 4 teams in the Bowl Championship Series, 2 bowl games, all 4 teams were like that. That the final game will probably, maybe it'll be different. Maybe it'll be like a 7-3 game or something. That would be it. But likely to be one of those 42-44 point games, 42-40 or something. Somebody will, yeah. So yeah, I talked about bowl games, Zeno's Paradox, Shortbread. Something else to babble about. Whatever it is, I end up, like, what are you talking about in that show? Unless it's nonsense about potluck matrices. Who does potluck matrices? Well, everybody should do a potluck matrix. Otherwise, you end up with too many green bean casseroles and not enough coleslaw or something. Anyway, I apologize if it isn't as entertaining as it has been in the past sometimes. Get through the holidays, everything's really a lot of fun, gain a little weight, have some food that you shouldn't eat, too much, a lot of dairy. There's a lot of dairy this holiday. Not that saying dairy is bad. I'm just saying that it was not in moderation. Eggnog left. Yeah, no. I think this week we're having like 2 or 3 vegetarian meals. Not that that's bad. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that it's a real change from, turkey and turkey sandwiches and turkey stew. Here. I got another hour. Okay, I'm not sure if I'll use the whole hour or not. But I should be able to finish what I was planning to finish, which is getting these base coated and getting the touch-up done. So after I'm done with these pillars, there's 2 more to go. I'm going to start working on the touch-up of the stuff I painted before the break. And then I will move on to touching up the stuff I started painting after the break, which is what I'm working on now. And then at the very end, if you had been watching from the beginning, I've got a fireplace. And the fireplace needs to have the wooden parts, the mantle and the base, washed with the smoky ink to make the wood look good. That needs to be done. That doesn't take long, but it just needs to be done. And then we'll get out the black wash and just do some highlights to make it, where the smoke is inside the firebox and up around the edges and stuff. Make that a little darker so it looks like the fireplace has been used, at least as well as I can with my limited artistic skills. We've done that before, and it just makes it look better because fireplaces do that. There's places that are darkened by the smoke and the soot from the fires that happen in the fireplace. This is pretty good. I'm using up like half a jar of paint here just on these. Good thing I ordered a lot of it before. We started painting these things. We started working on this stuff a couple of years ago. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but thinking back at it, it does, because we started ordering some of the paints online. The local hobby store was closed during the shutdown during the pandemic, so we started doing a lot of this stuff while we were shut down and shut in. And it was hard to get these paints. It was part of the supply line backups, I guess. The Viejo paints come from Spain, and there were some colors that was like go on eBay or go on Amazon, and they're hard to find, kind of, but on eBay, went on eBay and there's like one bottle of one color left anywhere in the world, it seemed. Anyway, we were able to get what we needed, but it was just kind of a surprise how hard it was to come by. Even now, there are some colors where you look around and it's never the same color, different colors at different times. But okay, I need a certain kind of blue. Search for the blue and find out that there's hardly any of it left anywhere. Tons of other colors that you don't need, right? But not the blue you wanted. So apparently, there's a time when everybody on the planet decides that they need this one color. kind of weird. Anyway, yeah, we started doing this, I guess, when the pandemic started and we were locked down, and it was hard to find some of the paint colors. It's a weird experience. Okay, so what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to go back to these tiles that I painted earlier. And you can see a couple of things. One is that this bigger brush didn't get into the gaps between the tiles that well, so I'm going to be using a smaller brush. And also, as I had noted, there's these dips and little dips and crevices and things in the floor. And some of those white spots are okay. We practiced that, tested it with different washes, and on a stone floor, it's not all that bad sometimes to have a bright spot show through. You get a little fleck of mica or something. So the main task will be getting paint into these crevices here and then touching things up. And then on the wall tiles like this, as you go around, sometimes you'll just see spots like that where you just didn't get the paint into the gaps between the blocks. And that's why holding it like this and turning it in many directions is important, because you look in one direction, everything looks fine, and then you turn it 80 degrees and you see a spot, and you turn it 92 degrees and you don't see it. So yeah, that's the kind of touching up we're going to be doing. So let me clean this brush, or at least get it started, and I'll pull out the smaller brush and get the touching up done on the ones that I painted before the break. And hopefully by the time I'm done with those, I'll be able to work with the ones that I just finished here. Use the brush, and it just fits in there. If I get enough paint on it, I can get down into the gap. The gap between the floor tiles is surprisingly deep. So it's not just looking straight down. And what's important is to rotate it too, because then there's the top edges that might not have been painted, like right there. Yeah, so touching up these floors, yeah, it's a little bit finicky. But, it's an important thing for the quality control. And then the other thing is, when I took them off of the sticky tack, I had to touch them on the corners, and so there's always a corner that isn't painted, like there. That it was off camera, but that's what it was. Okay, so I'm just going to be doing this a bunch of floors. Interesting at all, but trying to get as much as I can with these tiles, because that's so deep. When the wash gets put on later, it doesn't really get down into the crevices. I mean, no matter what you do, even though it's pretty liquid, it doesn't, unless you were to get an eyedropper and just kind of dip it along. Touched on corners. What's nice again about these paints is that they don't show brush marks, and really hardly at all. So like those little bits of paint that get across the top as I'm getting paint on the bottom, or when I touch up a spot like this, when it dries, it's gone. I've been really kind of amazed at that. It's really nice. If there's any texture at all, just really don't see a brush mark. We haven't tried airbrushing with them. I mean, these are made for brushing. I mean, they'd have to be thin for airbrushing. And I don't know how much paint we'd actually end up wasting if we were airbrushing. Primers are airbrushed. Ooh, there's a lot of paint on the brush there. We've been applying the base coat with a brush since we started doing this. And someday we'll experiment with the airbrush and see if the trade-off between the amount of paint and the amount of time works out or not, or whether it's just easier and faster actually. Certainly paint-wise, it doesn't waste paint as much with the brush. It's like one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know. Maybe it's we don't want to try anything new. Who knows? But someday we might. Need to reconfigure the studio so people could watch that. Okay. Yeah, they're coming along here. Anything yet? Circles on the top of this one for some reason. Sometimes it's just, how long I've been painting with the brush since cleaning it too. Sometimes that actually makes a difference because the paint saturates differently and flows off the brush differently. Sometimes it's worth taking the time to fix that, and sometimes it's just and sometimes it would be worth taking the time to do it, but it's like, I don't want to, and so I don't. Hoping that those of you who are watching this enjoyed the holidays, whichever ones you were celebrating. That you found it, at least sometime. I know a bunch of you probably had to work probably harder over the holidays than you do regularly, and everybody probably didn't thank you nearly enough for doing that. I hope none of you had to work on a return line, right? It's like people coming back angry about something they got, claiming it was broken, or who knows what, and they're all surly and unhappy because they're bringing things back that they didn't want, or they did want and used and then broke, or who knows what. But in terms of customer service, anybody out there had to work on a return line. Thank you very much for your incredible patience putting up with the people that were returning things, because I'm sure it was difficult, and it's like the day after the holiday, right? People can't wait 2 days or something. They have to come right away. Anyway, yeah. Those of you who were not able to enjoy the holidays, it's part of retail in America. Our expectations are that somebody will be there to serve our every whim. We ran out of brandy for the eggnog, and got to get some right away, or else our world is ended. And there's the expectation that somebody will be there. Thank you, those of you who had to work. Especially thank you for those who had to work in jobs that were not appreciated by the people you were working for. Okay. Understood. I guess, well, understood is the wrong word. You never really... There never was really any excuse in my mind for people who were nasty to people who were in the service industry and retail service, It's not like you're the one who made the stuff that broke, or you're not the one who set the price for it. Front line. Anybody a little bit of a grump about something, will take it out right on you. No matter how pleasant you try to be. And some of you, those of you who have to do it, I've known some people who do. You get to somebody who's been on hold for the better part of, it feels like 6 or 7 months, right? It's been maybe even close to an hour or something, and they've been on hold because there's only like 6 of you on the world working on these lines, and just you're taking them as fast as you can without being abrupt or rude to the customer, because no matter what they're like, you have to be nice, and you are. Sometimes you're just amazing in your patience. So yeah, you get people who are calling you because they're upset about something anyway, and then they're on hold forever because there's not nearly enough people being hired to handle the custom lines. And you're not paid terribly well. And you're the front line of whatever abuse people decide to hand out, because there you are. You're there, and you're the target. So, having been on hold for, the better part of a million years, and finally getting hold of someone, it's always amazing, because I know that they just got off a call with somebody who probably wasn't very pleasant. It's just always amazing. They are just like pleasant. And it makes it all easier. And sometimes you just can't help, You don't have the authority to fix whatever it is. That's their problem. Sometimes it's not even your product, like people call the wrong line. And they say, well, can't you fix it anyway? Because I was just on hold for all this time. You have to try to explain that you're not the people who are responsible, and then who is then if not you? And just sort of irrational stuff, I imagine, happens. I can imagine the stories that people who are doing customer service come up can relate. So thank you, everybody in customer service, especially on the return lines and the complaint lines. Lines of places people finally get to when the robot on the phone isn't able to answer a question because you really don't want to just add 74 new channels to your account. You want some compensation because the last time the truck was out, they severed the line and they never fixed it. And what can you do about it? Oh, yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the people who do all of those jobs that are really awful and don't pay nearly enough. And they're awful not because, just because they're like a difficult job, but they're awful because you're just not treated very well. And there is no excuse for customers to treat the people who are doing their best to do their jobs, treat them poorly. There's just no reason for that. I was just thinking about that because, we always see these pictures of return lines after Christmas. And I'm thinking, how can there be so many people not get things that they don't want, or get things and then take them back because they've used them and they don't want them anymore. And they don't have their receipts, and they can't even prove that they bought it from you, and you still have to deal with it. Anyway, thank you to the people who do that kind of stuff, because it's really difficult and much appreciated. Going along here, getting a little gaps between the tiles is, it's not too bad. This brush mostly gets it in there, at least enough so that it doesn't show. Ooh, that was bad. Sometimes near the end here, I get a little careless, and what I was careless about there was potential disaster, which is as the paint gets down and the brush gets deeper. I caught the lip of the bottle as I was pulling the brush out. And if that had been a little further down and a little harder, I would have had it paint half a bottle of paint spilled on the work surface here. Mixing the paint would have only been the least of the problem. The paint getting everywhere on the pants and floor. Just doing the rotation thing here to make sure that I got all the nooks and crannies and crevices. There's less touch-up on these than I have had in the past. Maybe it was because it was a fresh bottle of paint and there was still a fair amount of solvent left in it, and the paint gets thicker as the solvent evaporates faster than the bottle is open while you're using it, so the solvent's evaporating. sometimes, but maybe what's happening there is that the paint gets thicker, and when it dries, it's more likely to pull away from the surface. I don't know. At any rate, it's not too bad. Well, these are the ones oh, yeah, that is bad. I just missed a bunch of spots there. Let's just say this post-break painting was not as good as the pre-painting, at least on this particular one. It's pretty bad. The lip of the bottle again. Need to pay attention. Yeah, there's a little spot up there. It looks like maybe I rubbed it. I could have missed it. You just rubbed it when you set it down or something. There's many fewer spots in the gaps between the bricks than usual. Usually there's a bunch of those. There doesn't seem to be very many. Take credit for having done a better job of it or something. The main issue with these is just the between the blanks near the bottom. Yeah, on both sides I missed those little spots there. It was the arrow slit, just the spots. Once again up on the top. It's probably where I was holding it. I held it on the top. And then painted it over later. I got one more wall on the pillars to touch up, and then let's see. It'll probably be time to do the washing on the fireplace wood, just to get that done. Really what need to decide what to do with the aftermath of the relaxing painting here. Oftentimes my follow-up to relaxing painting is to lay down and put my feet up, because I tend to slouch over when I'm painting here, and then when I stand up it hurts. because my back muscles had been contracted in a not helpful way. So I have to do some stretches and then lay down and really not doze off, but at least put my feet up and stretch my back and do a little bit of reading before I attempt to do anything else physical. I have exciting physical things to do, like I have to walk out to this curb and bring the trash and recycling back. What was this? Trash and recycling pickup day. There was a lot of recycling. And probably very few of you are old enough to remember, but there was a time, I think it was actually in the 80s or something, where all of a sudden all the packaging turned to plastic, and there wasn't any shipping of goods really, but that, believe it or not, manufacturers of cardboard boxes were going out of business. Nowadays, it's like you can't get through the week without having a mountain of cardboard boxes practically. Okay, let's see what we can do with this giant one here. There's a lot of gaps between four pieces here. Anyway, yeah, there was a lot of recycled cardboard this week. More than usual. Maybe it was because there was so much floor area that I wasn't getting as much paint on it as I usually do. Doing this one is be especially careful about looking at it from the side. I've noticed that as I turned it, that there are white spots there. I need to look at it from all four directions. Pay attention to all the spots on this one. It's a bigger piece in this, I think maybe in proportion to the others there aren't any more, but there's just a lot of them because it's a big piece. And something happened here, and it just got brushed up against something or rubbed. Seems to be okay. Now just get the pillars next. There. Gonna grab this on the top and the bottom, rotate it around, and then set it down and get the top. Because I've got, you can see where I picked it up off the sticky tack there. We should have stayed there. Back between now and Friday. I'm trying to remember what we did in terms of accent blocks on these pillars, whether we did those or not. I think we did, but I want to be sure. I don't want to either not do it and then wash it without the accent blocks and have to come back and basically repaint the whole thing. Or put accent blocks in and then come back and have to repaint the whole thing. So to remember to check to see whether we put accent blocks on the pillars or not. You need to look at it from the top, don't you? Two. Looking at the indentations, little steps along the bases there. In the spots you can only see anymore looking. I've just got a couple more of these pillars to touch up. And I'm going to put the smoky ink wash on the wood part of the fireplace. And then pull out the black wash, which is, really quite dark. It's got a lot of pigment in it. And just do a little detailing to make it look like the areas where it's darker where the smoke would have been. Doing that. Fireplace will be done. And these guys will be ready for accent block painting. It's always an interesting adventure, trying to decide where they go and making them look balanced but not overwhelmed with accent blocks. I tend to put too many in. Sometimes I'll put 5 in like a wall, and I should really kind of limit that to like 3. So we'll see how I do when I work on that on Friday. I think that's it. Touching these up and then finishing the fireplace. That should be just about right for today. Maybe a couple minutes early. Yeah, some of these need hardly any touching, and just right always where I picked them up off of the sticky tack. Gloves took the paint up off of the corner. That's pretty easy fix. It's just making sure that I get it. It's just one. Actually, is a really nice color, even by itself, before it's washed. Kind of this grayish blue color. It's yeah, just a really rich tone to it. Looks good on these pillars. I mentioned this many times in the past. You can't, sometimes when the light hits it, you can't tell the difference between a white spot that was missed and wet paint, because the wet paint is shiny. And sometimes it just looks like a white spot. Occasionally, things might just get like triple painted. Okay, so we got those touching up done. Cap this up. What I'm going to need then is this palette thing, because I need a well. And I think this, what I'm going to be doing is just the wooden parts here, the stuff that's brown, is I'm going to be putting some smoky ink wash on that. I'm going to use a little risky, but it'll work better, is a bigger brush to make sure that the ink is just kind of spread evenly, which is really hard to do with a little brush. Give this a huge stirring up. This has been used in the book. There, a white spot right there. But it always happens, right? You think you're done, and then you look over, and right on the very top of that one pillar is a spot. If I went through these, I'd find flaws again, but either we'll cover that up with the wash or we'll touch it up when we see it. But that one was just too obvious, so I had to Had to get that. Okay, so this is set for a bit. It's getting near the bottom of the bottle. So I'm going to give this a major shaking to distribute what's left of the pigment into what's left. This is cool. I mean, you can see that. Can't really see it. The light's working. There's a standing wave pattern in the wash water from the vibrations of this third thing. Okay, well, this isn't going to take very much time or material, but it's important because this wood does not look good until it's been washed. So we'll squeeze out some of this. Get this off of here so it's not wasted, and I'm going to do the base first. In the sides. Pretty good grain pattern on the print, so I want to make sure I catch that. And we'll brush it across the grain. Yeah, it's really shiny now, but it really makes the wood pop. Okay, that worked well. Now what I want is the black wash. Not the dark gray, but just the real, actual black. Sure what I want. Maybe back here somewhere. Yeah, this has been around for a while, so it's pretty thick, which is okay, because what I'm doing is I'm painting the inside of the firebox so that it looks sooty. Squeeze up more. I'm going to use a small brush for this because I want to kind of control where it goes, but the inside of the firebox needs to be dark, and it needs to be especially dark in the center area. Not over, but especially in the center area where it's fired on. Painting this in, and then I'm going to just put a lot more here in the middle. And I think just, just a little bit there, because the smoke would come up, right? In the middle. Just color it a little bit. I'm actually going to kind of lay this down because I want it to puddle up and look dark here, where the smoke would be heaviest. And kind of leaving it lighter on the edges, not because the smoke wouldn't get there, but I want the contrast to be seen. That'll lighten up a little as it dries. That's what I'm trying to do here. And, you know, it's not going to dry for a while. But we'll see how it looks when we come back on Friday. So you can see if it was a success or not. So I'm just going to let that set. And we'll close this up. Okay, so yeah, what we've done here today is base coated a whole lot of tiles, finished the doors, did a fireplace, and the bases of the countertops. Finished those up. And what we're going to be doing on Friday is doing accent blocks, the brown blocks on the walls. There aren't very many walls. There's square corner. You know, the arrow slits are sometimes a little bit challenging in terms of getting the paint right. There's a bunch of these pillars and a big round thing. So what we'll probably end up doing is we'll see if they dry or not. Sometimes that brown accent block paint takes a long time to dry, but if it dries, then we'll be able to do the wash. And if it doesn't dry in time, what we'll be doing instead is starting to work on things like the cauldron and the sarcophagus and stuff like that. Those accent pieces that I had shown you earlier. So yeah, accent blocks. And then we'll work on this thing and the cauldron and paint that steel. Maybe might even do some brass handles on it or something. The color chart doesn't call for that, but I might just do it anyway because I think it would look cool. And if they don't like it, then we'll paint over it. I have to look up to see what color. I think that's supposed to be green inside. The bubbly green stuff. I might even try to accent the bubbles a little bit. I might play with this a bit. We'll see. And then I have to look up to see what to do with the sarcophagus. We have done all sorts of things with this. We painted this in huge detail with a sword of different color and armor details and stuff, and highlighted the raised parts of sarcophagus in different colors. I'm not sure if that's something they're going to want. I have to look at the charts. There's little strings and things I need to clean up before we paint that. Anyway, that might be something we'll get to on Friday. Otherwise, Happy New Year. Hope it's a good one for you. We will see you again Friday from 10 until 2, again, more or less. Take care between now and then, especially if you're stuck out in that storm that's going on out there. See you then. Bye.